This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 166.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 166, and today's special guest is Peter Ramsey, the CEO and founder of Movem, a platform that makes renting fairer and more trustworthy. Enjoy today's show. Hi, Peter, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hi. Hi.
Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what are you working on right now?
Cool, yeah. So my name's Peter. I'm 24. For the last 5 years, I've been building a company called Movem that is it helps tenants move house. And in effect, we built services that help tenants move more fairly and more transparently.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for this short description, but can you elaborate a little bit more on what exactly you mean by moving more fairly and transparently?
Sure. So, for example, when a tenant wants to move, they have to go through this long process called referencing. Now, what we've made is the first ever referencing tool that's instant and uses open banking. So, whereas before, in order to move into a house, you'd have to have somebody phone your landlord and your employer to check that you earn money and pay rent on time. We do that all using basically APIs and algorithms. So it's basically just takes something that used to take a long amount of time, and now it's instant and it's sort of safer for the tenant as well as fairer and cheaper.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because I'm not sure what kind of information you're using. I know that here, let's say in Montreal, in Canada, I don't see how that would work because I don't see many of these, landlords or jobs or companies or banks or anyone really giving out APIs or, actually having APIs of any kind, right? So how did you guys make it work in UK?
Yeah, so there's a new thing in the UK called open banking. Now, what it means is they've effectively, the government has forced the large UK banks to provide these APIs. Now, before they provided the APIs, there are other older technologies that people can use. They're not quite as slick, but there's always been a way to do it. And there are services in America that do the same thing and all over Europe as well. So I'm not actually sure if Canada has a similar thing. I assume they do, but there are services that do this kind of account aggregation all over.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And how did you come up with the actual idea of starting something like that?
Yeah, so it was quite organic, really. So I was at uni and I had to rent the first time, and I found the experience really difficult. So
yeah,
I set up a website that was actually for tenants to review landlords. And the idea was that tenants would go online and they would leave feedback on their landlords and their agencies and their properties. So like a TripAdvisor, but for places you live, like your home.
Mm-hmm.
Then we worked with that for about 2 years. We were quite successful with it, to be honest. And then it started becoming more apparent that, sure, we can help tenants learn more about places that they're going to move into, but actually the agencies and the landlords want to know more about the tenants that are going to live in their home. And there's this two-sided story to it. And so as we matured as a company, we kind of moved away from a TripAdvisor model and more onto an Airbnb style. Person X reviews person Y and vice versa. So each user on our site will have an account, and it's more of a trust-based moving process. So that was our kind of approach in 2015. And then we started really looking at how we can engage more with agencies and put ourselves more in the process. So we then started developing our own tech effectively and entirely built in-house the functionality to do an instant reference that's never been done before. So we were the first people to ever do an instant tenant reference. And now in 5 years' time, every tenant will be referenced in that way in the UK. So, we're being copied by these big guys because what we've done is take something that did take a week and now can be done in, 2 minutes. So it may not seem significant, but it actually helps tenants move into places quicker. It helps landlords avoid periods where there isn't somebody paying rent, and it just helps the whole process be managed better as well. So we had that large pivot away from the review site. Really, like early this year was when we made the conscious decision that we're now a fintech company. We're dealing more with open banking and APIs than we are with reviews, but that's kind of where it started from. It was quite an organic process.
Wow, yeah, that's very interesting, and I can see the value in that. This is pretty crazy because, well, as I mentioned, I know a lot of landlords here, and I know that they would sometimes spend months monitoring people that potentially want to rent from them. And, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. So having a system in place that allows you to do that super, super quickly, that's really awesome.
Yeah. And our goal is to take it to the next level, really. So let's say you were to move to the UK, or I was to move to Canada. If I was to move to Canada, I would, actually, no, let's do it the other way because I don't know how Canada works.
Yeah.
If you were to move to the UK, you would come over here and then you would really struggle to find somewhere to live because the agencies here would say, well, we need to prove that you're earning money.
Yeah.
You may have just left your job. It's very unlikely you're still employed in Canada if you're living here. Okay. So you come over here, you don't have a job yet. Maybe you've got a job, but you've only been there a week, whatever. You'd really struggle to find somewhere to live. And there's this kind of black hole that the government and the agencies are aware of, but they let people slip through the cracks because there's a supply issue. There isn't enough houses. So for someone like you to take one of the houses, that's trouble for the agency because they've got to take a leap of faith on you as a person that you're going to pay. But there's always going to be another UK tenant who's going to pay that money straight away. So it's very unlikely they would take the risk on you. So what we really want to do is open it up so that the Movem account, the Movem passport, as we call it, that can be used to actually migrate from country to country. So you would be able to prove that you earn money in Canada. You would be able to prove that your landlord received rent on time in Canada. Come over here, and then you'll be able to use that in the same way that I use that, and you have exactly the same kind of shot at renting a house. So it would just help if we bridge that gap between people when they kind of move countries, because right now the credit reference kind of gets cleaned and you start again. But we think that people who pay rent for 10 years in one place can move, and then they should be rewarded for that, not punished. So that's kind of where it's going.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a great idea.
Thank you.
All right, Peter. So, have you ever had a job, a 9-to-5 or something of that sort?
I once worked in a kitchen, but I only lasted there for like a week.
Okay.
I also had a placement while I was at uni, but that was terrible. So I left that as well. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you because you said that you've been doing that for quite a while, and you're only 24, right? So
yeah,
it kind of led me to believe that you've been in that entrepreneurship since pretty much since school.
Yeah. So even during school, I taught myself web design, basic kind of Dreamweaver at the time, and then I made websites for people while I was at school. So I've always had something going on. Like I've always been working on something. It's just that Movem's been the first thing that makes me money. Everything else has just lost me money. But no, I've never had a proper job. Yeah,
and that's to me that's very interesting, and I think it's really cool that I'm finding people that actually have not had had like a regular job, because most people that I would interview, especially older folks, most of them had jobs, and eventually because they hated them, or they didn't see their life advancing in the right direction because of those jobs, they ended up doing becoming entrepreneurs because of past bad experiences having a job or trying to seek out that freedom or, whatever. So it's very interesting to meet people that actually have not really struggled with that issue because from the get-go they went into entrepreneurship and just did something.
I think there's two ways of looking at it, which is, when you're 19 or 20, you have very little responsibility. So, I have a mortgage now, but I didn't have a mortgage then. So, I didn't really have to pay anything. In fact, I didn't pay myself for the first 2 years, and I got by just by, doing website design and bits and bobs really. So I didn't have to pay childcare, for example. I don't have kids now, but I didn't have to pay that. And so people at 18, 19 can really jump into, they can really jump into a project or a business. And most businesses start as kind of projects anyway. They can jump into that without having to worry too much. And so there's a really low barrier to entry there. Now, when people go to work, maybe they come out of uni, they then spend 4 or 5 years working their way up a ladder. It's quite difficult to then draw yourself away from a 40k job and then earn nothing for 2 years. By that time you've moved house, perhaps you've bought a house. So you get kind of stuck in this rut then. And I'm finding it with, my friends at uni now, and, lots of them have lots of brilliant ideas, but they actually can't pursue them because they've just spent 3 years getting an accounting qualification, say, right? They don't want to now become a chartered accountant and then straight away pack it in to do their own thing because they just worked so hard. And so there is this second wave when people get to, 30s, mid 30s, where they've kind of done that for a few years. They've kind of seen the reward and they're not moving up as much as they wish they were. So I think it is harder for people who are kind of 24 and haven't done a business before to start a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just happy that you didn't have to go through all the job thing.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, it's actually not. Sometimes I wish I had. So let me give an example. We're hiring a QA tester at the moment. Now, a QA tester is somebody who effectively tests all the code that comes through and checks things work, right? And so I've never worked with a QA tester. All the other guys have. They've worked with them in previous businesses, but I've never met one. And so when I'm interviewing people, I've got no calibration of if this person is any good or not. And so if I had worked in a couple of office jobs, I would have met an HR person and I'll be able to look at them and go, I really like this trait you had, but I didn't really like the fact that you did this. And I could then look for somebody who fit the mold of what I enjoyed when I worked for someone. But because I've never had that, I've never had a boss. I've got no aspect of what a good boss is like. The closest I get is watching the UK Office, right? So I think it does help to have a few jobs, but it depends what you do, doesn't it?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And what's funny that I was just about to suggest you to watch The Office
I love
to get the idea of a good boss.
What do you prefer, the US office or the UK one?
Honestly, US, because somehow I can relate more to that. It's a different humor, right?
Yeah, I love the US office probably as much.
Yeah, it's and it's hard to compare because I find the storyline is completely different still.
Oh yeah, and it's a completely different show.
Exactly, yeah, it's a completely different show. They're both great.
Yeah.
All right, Peter. So I want to go back to Movem, and how did you first how did you find your first customers? How did you get the word out about that company and that new service that you guys are providing?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, there's kind of a phrase of you have to hustle your first 100 users, say, right? Mm-hmm. So when I first launched Movem as the review site, I built it myself in however long, couple of weeks, whatever, and it wasn't particularly impressive. But then I went to uni and I remember walking around the library and other students were on it, right? And that to me was like the tipping point for me to leave and start full time, because I was like, I'm onto something. Okay. Turns out the idea I had then wasn't the thing anyway, but whatever. I thought So the first few users I got just from university, but we don't get that now because I'm not at university. I don't have the links to university. It doesn't spread so organically. So when we release stuff now, it's just, you find ways like contacts, or friends of friends. And, I find there's no playbook we have when we want to like go out to people in that way.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, do you what kind of marketing do you do for that company?
Yeah, so most of the time it's word of mouth, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of success because our product's so different and it's a genuine alternative to what exists today. We literally have agencies recommend us, so it's all referrals. Now that won't last forever, but for now we're doing really well, just organically growing in that way. So we're not spending anything on marketing, not a penny. So we will eventually start, but for now we're kind of riding the gravy train, is the expression, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And lately I've had some guests on this podcast, and I've spoken to some people personally at conferences who are running these multi-million-dollar companies offering services online, and many of them are kind of in the same position where they don't use any marketing at all because, they're like, well, the word just gets around and we prefer to invest that money that we could spend on extra marketing. We prefer to invest it in bettering our services and making clients happier, hence getting more referrals from those clients, right?
Yeah. So there is an element of that. Yeah.
I just find it very surprising and really awesome as well, because if you are getting referrals and word of mouth and people come to you and stay, that's because you're good at what you do. That's because they love what you're providing.
I tell you what, it's exciting when it happens, but it's frustrating because there's no golden rule. So, I look at companies. Have you heard of Monzo?
No, I haven't. No.
They're actually UK based. So Monzo are what's called a challenger bank, whatever. It doesn't really matter what they do. But there's this company called Monzo, and they've grown really well through word of mouth, and they create hype. Now that's really cool to look at because I can look at them and say, this is how we want our brand to look. But it's actually really unhelpful because natural hype is really difficult to manufacture. So you can't, there's no step-by-step guide to go viral. Yeah. And so it's really exciting when it happens, but it's really unhelpful for other people because they ask you how you've done it and you don't have an answer. It's just, well, we got lucky, to be honest. And that luck runs out somewhere. So we're just kind of waiting for that to happen, really.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I know what you mean. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and especially that the whole viral thing is wow. This is so hard because I've seen a lot of people, not just companies, but I've seen YouTube channels and other content creators and whatever you want. Sometimes people do go viral for whatever reason, and as you said, it can't really be replicated. It can't be. You can't force that viral thing on yourself, unfortunately.
No, there's no way to force it, yeah.
All right, Peter. So a question for you. There is some coding and stuff like that required for a platform such as yours. And did you do all of that initially, or did you have people who actually specialize in coding to do the work?
Yeah, so initially I did. Now we have developers who are far better than I ever was. I couldn't make the stuff we have now, but I think, I was a sole founder when I started, so I didn't have a guy that coded and a guy that did this or whatever. So, look, you make do. So the first thing you release is always crap, like it always is. And then you kind of just hope that people kind of see through it into a better product or something that will be better. And then you can get people on board that can make the vision happen. So I worked on the first one, but it was complete crap, really, when it first came out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm asking you this because a lot of people approach me and they tell me that, they have this great app idea or this SaaS idea that they can't implement because they simply don't know how to code, how to develop. And, these people are often marketing people, and they're like, yeah, I could like write you a great business plan for this app and show you why it's going to work, but I can't do it myself. I can't code it, yet I can't hire anyone to do it for me. So that's the kind of question, that a lot of people have.
I'd say if you don't know how if you can't code or you don't have enough of an understanding to technically spec out at least, or at least technically design version 1 of the thing you're building, don't bother, because it's like you don't know what you're getting into. I know nothing about building a house with my hands, right? So if I came to you and said, I've invented a new way to build a house, right? Like I clearly don't know enough about, the tools or the materials used, and there'll be in some intricate things that, you have to do that I haven't worked out. And so to me, I get that all the time. People come to me and say, I've got an app idea. It's like Facebook, but for, right? That's the sentence. It's like Facebook, but for. And you just think, okay, but you've got no idea how you're going to make it. So how are you going to handle the 100 other things you haven't thought of? Like you haven't even got an idea yet. It's more interesting when someone comes to me with an idea that they're like, I've developed a really shitty version of something that can be good, right? It wouldn't make sense for someone who doesn't develop apps to develop an app.
Okay. I see where you're going with this. Yeah, that makes sense. And by the way, Peter, I have this idea. It's like Airbnb, but...
Yeah, that's the other one. To be honest, I do that, right? Like, I don't want to dishearten anyone who has that, because for a long time, we promoted ourselves as like Airbnb, but for long-term rentals, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a phrase that's just done to death, and we used it. It's not like a bad thing. It's just that it's so common now, it loses any kind of interest. I think investors switch off as soon as you say that.
Yeah, or Uber as well. That's another one. It's like Uber, but for something else.
Like Uber, but for, American cuisine. And you just think like that's too specific. No one cares.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one that I kind of, that started losing magic to me is the actual word startup.
Startup.
Yeah, because a lot of people would come up and would say, I have this amazing startup idea. Like, we're gonna rent this space, right? And make food and have tables, and people gonna eat that food, and we're gonna charge them for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, that. Don't call it a startup. That's a restaurant. Yeah. Call it a business. Call it a venture. It's not a startup. To me, it's just not. Yet people use that word to just throw it around because everything is a startup now, and I know it bothers me. To me, startup has to be at least somehow tech related. It needs to have lines of code and developers behind it.
Have you ever seen the TV show Silicon Valley?
Okay, so you're like the millionth person that mentions that to me, and I have not seen it. No.
Oh, God. Silicon Valley is like the perfect... it's like the stereotype of every startup ever. And it's quite painful to watch. But for anyone who thinks they're a startup, watch this show. And if you're anything like that, then perhaps you are a bit. But yeah.
I have to watch that. That's for sure. I know. Too many people told me to watch it, and I just haven't had the time for it.
Yeah.
All right, Peter. So, where is Movem going in the future? You mentioned that Movem passport that you're working on. What else? What else is in the store?
Yeah. So, we obviously have big aspirations to kind of help tenants everywhere in the world rent. That's really our aim. And so, but right now we're really focused on just the referencing and solving this one small thing. So the next steps for us are taking the product we've built and making it work all over the UK. And that is a very large task. And somewhere in that, we're going to move to releasing a product very similar in the US. That's probably going to be our first step, our first side step. And that's more difficult because you have, like state law and state databases and also national databases, and it all becomes a mess, basically. So we're going to try and solve that. We're going to try and sort that bit out and eventually make this universal rental passport that can be used anywhere kind of in the world. And that's really where we're going. Now that's could even be 10 years time. So we're a long way away from that. But yeah, the kind of small to medium steps are just taking the product we've got in the UK and helping it work for everybody here.
Mm-hmm. That's very ambitious and huge projects that you guys have ahead of you.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point also of entrepreneurship, right? You have to push yourself. You have to look for those limits.
For sure.
All right, Peter. So one question I didn't ask you so far is, how does Movem actually make you money? How do you monetize that service?
Yeah. So agencies pay us a fee to reference their tenants. So the process that we get involved in, agencies pay a fee for that. So to give you an idea, when they have to employ people to make the phone calls, it typically costs them somewhere around £20, but we can do ours for half that cost. So £10, and you get all the checks you need. So we have a transactional cost. It's actually a really simple business model. So for every client we have, they pay us a fee to reference their tenants, and that's it. Mm-hmm. There are some other little bits that happen, but that's the main revenue stream through that.
Okay, that's interesting, and I see why they would use that instead of hiring others. If they're paying less money, I mean, that's their business. This agency is a business. That's all that matters for them, getting the best results for the least money possible, right?
Yeah, and they don't have to wait around for 2 days, so they don't have to chase up these phone calls. It's cheaper, more efficient, quicker. It actually ticks all the boxes, which is why we're being copied so heavily by a lot of people. This is the way it's going now. So,
And do you see or think that any of those copycats have been successful or somewhat successful?
No one has a product out yet. So, I mean, I'm talking to them all because they all came to us and were either looking to buy us or use us or just copy us. So, I've spoke to most of them and I've got very little faith in any of them. But some of the guys behind some of these projects are smart and make good stuff. So they may put something out that's better than ours. So I don't want to judge any of them too much before I see it. But I'm not particularly worried about any of them today.
Why not?
Well, because the stuff they've released in the past to do with reference, look, the stuff that we do could have been done 10 years ago. Right? There's no reason why it didn't, and no one spotted it. And it's millions and some of these companies make 25-30 million pounds a year doing what we do. So there is enough money in the market to change, but nobody spotted it, and we spotted a small gap that was actually the way things head. And I think these guys, the guys that run these companies aren't startups. They're not tech companies. They're middle management men who have board meetings about decisions, right? And that's not kind of how we work. So look, some new companies are going to copy us, and some new companies run by some smart guys that have been in startups might copy us. So I'm not worried about the ones I see today, but they may surprise me,
All right. That makes a lot of sense. And by the way you describe them and what they do, I kind of get the same feeling that, they're doing it because they kind of have to, because they saw you succeed at that, and they're thinking, okay, well, anyone can. Yeah. But it takes a lot more than that. It takes a lot more dedication that I bet many of them are willing to put in.
Yeah, or we're able to do, what you've got to remember is we've taken a company that has no tech. Right, it's completely people-based. So some of these companies employ 300, 400 people, and they sit there in a call center and they make phone calls. Now, they have an IT department of 5 people who handle the emails and when the servers go down. But now this IT department are being faced with building tech, like actual tech. And so, can these guys even build tech? Well, I'm not sure this IT department has it in them, but I think our biggest threat are from new companies, new challenger companies that come in, run by people who do build tech. That's where I see our issues. It's not with these guys that exist today. So, but look, I don't worry too much about it. I think competition can be healthy. We're not the smartest guys ever, So someone will come along with more money, more people, more expertise. So we're just going to try and keep ahead of everyone we can, but we'll see, really.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. All right, Peter, thank you for sharing all of that. And before, as we're heading to the end of this episode, what would be your biggest suggestion to someone who is either starting a business or just thinking of starting a business, thinking of going into entrepreneurship? What is that one most important thing that they should pay attention to?
So the one bit of advice I have for anybody, both starting and, already in kind of business, entrepreneurship or whatever, is to read more. I think there are, and I always say that. I always say people should read more. Like, set aside time to read books that you find interesting. But that doesn't really help people who haven't started, and it won't give you the kick you need to start. I think, look, some people have it in them. Some people don't and want to do it. But I think if you're not prepared to take the leap to even start, like, you're going to come across these problems a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line that are going to trip you up anyway. They normally need a kicker, something to like force them to do it. I don't know what that is. I think it's kind of down to each person, really.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes it's like a tragic event, like, makes people like kick them into like, oh, I'm actually going to do this now. I don't think it has to be, I don't know. It's difficult.
Okay, I got you. And since you did mention books, what kind of books do you read?
Yeah, so lots of like social science books, but I don't read stories ever. Like, I never read like
fiction.
I never read fiction. So I don't waste my time with that. But I still think if you enjoy that, that's a good thing to do. Like, reading does more than just learn. It actually engages part of your brain, I think. But, some books I've read, so I'm looking at my bookshelf now, actually. So Michael Lewis, he wrote The Big Short, which is a film adapted a couple of years ago. Great film. So that kind of stuff, that's kind of a story, but it's actually like real life. It happened. And, Richard Taylor, he's like a Nobel award-winning author. Whatever, really, loads of stuff, whatever interests me. Finance, anything. Just read something. Like, there's no
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking at this book right in front of me that I haven't. I started reading it. I'm not through it yet. It's the Rise of the Youpreneur by Chris Ducker.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that.
It's new. It came out in February, I think. And
Nice.
When I think back, at books that I've read in the past 10 years, also I don't think there hasn't been a single fiction book. It's all like books related to to what I do, to business, to marketing, to understanding people, to anything in between, but no fiction.
Yeah, I mean, fiction to me is like watching telly. It's the difference between watching telly and watching a documentary, right? Like, you watch a documentary and you learn some stuff, and maybe it sticks in your brain, maybe you forget about it straight away. But watching Hollyoaks, you're going to learn nothing. Okay, so if you read books that are, Harry Potter, then you're not going to learn anything from that. But I still think it's valuable because it gets you thinking about, the English language or whatever language you're reading in, or grammar, and there's of course stuff you can take from that. But I only ever read business or finance or psychology related books, really.
Awesome.
I also only read based on recommendations. So I've done a couple of interviews where I said that I read, and now people have started sending me books. So I've got like a backlog of books now I'm just working through. So, I don't just pick up anything.
That's really cool. All right, Peter, thank you for sharing. And before you go, where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so I guess that Twitter's a pretty common place. So the company tag is at Movem UK, which is Mother October Victor Echo Mother, Movem UK. And my own personal Twitter is just at Pete Ramsey. which is EY at the end. Maybe you could put a link to it or something.
Yeah, I'm going to put links in the show notes page.
Cool.
And of course, you didn't mention movem.co.uk as a website.
Yeah, I should have done, shouldn't I? So that's how you can find like our site and a bit more about what we do and stuff.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, Peter, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your story and your tips.
No problem. No, it was great to chat, and I'll speak to you later.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. As always, head over to extrapodcast.com/166. This is where I'll be putting up show notes page for today's episode. Also, head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show on iTunes. If you haven't already, please do leave a rating and a review. Also, head over to extrapodcast.com/Spotify in order to follow the show on Spotify. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.